chilly. Shortly after taking office, I wanted to meet and engage with other mayors and other Northeast Indiana leaders. I'm a firm believer in adopting best practices, and frankly, I had to learn them before I could ask anyone to adopt one. The Northeast Indiana mayors are a special group. Every mayor, regardless of affiliation, is willing to help one another. I am frankly honored to be a junior member of this esteemed group of leaders. So I went, and I continue to go. Engaging with other communities is a personal key performance indicator I hold myself accountable for. I report out to my staff every week. I literally Doge report myself to my staff. All of you, I would ask you to do the same. Go to other Fort Wayne donut communities. Size them up. Ask questions. Listen. Take note. This took me to a city about our size and population. I'm not going to tell you who it is. Maybe you can guess. But Brandy and I went to talk about park assets, downtown revitalization, stellar awards, and more. But what left me shaking my head was chilly. Yes, chilly. You see, we were coming up on our chili walk, one of my favorite downtown events. This city expected over 40 entries. Impressive. A new standard for us to meet. No problem. I have a very subtle competitive edge to me. But what was next left me speechless. Their highest entry total was 200. 200. It is time to step up our game. I went to my department meeting. I asked all my departments to enter the chili competition. The city stepped up with 5 entries. Parks, dispatch, economic development, wastewater, and the police department. The city even created its own city chili award. Congrats to the 911 dispatch team. And congrats to the Parks Department, who won the Talking Smack Award. We're still far away from 40 and miles away from 200. But can you imagine the downtown experience with 200 chili events? Are we okay being a fraction of our neighbors? It is time to compete. Now let's talk about what this requires. If we are serious about competing, truly competing, that we must be clear about what this means. Today, if you're looking for a full inventory of completed projects, that record is public and accessible. We report continuously through council meetings, public financial reports, social media updates, website alerts, and through the Parlor City Voice podcast, where we walk through decisions and directions in real time. Transparency is not something we save for one afternoon. It is constant. So today is not a listening activity. Today is about defining expectation. We are not here to be adequate. Adequate cities survive. Great cities compete. And Bluffton will compete. That means refusing to normalize average, even when average is comfortable. That is the expectation. If we are going to compete, we cannot ignore the basics. Great cities are built on strong foundations. See that plant to the left? A big shout out to Tony Fay and the wastewater treatment plant. This is perhaps the biggest public investment in the history of Bluffton, and we just turned it on. It's operating. Great shout out to Tony. A great shout out to the James S. Jackson Company who helped make this possible. The synergy was absolutely fabulous. Thank you. Foundations are rarely glamorous. Much of Bluffton's physical infrastructure was built in the same era. Streets, water lines, sidewalks, facilities. Systems that serve generations well are now aging together. We have a dedicated city staff, water, electric, wastewater departments that deal with these issues 24/7, 365, on the coldest and the hottest days, at times in the most uncomfortable circumstance. Service interruptions, while inconvenient, will happen, but we work together to get the city back online quickly. Our first responders, men and women of the Bluffton Police Department, the Bluffton Fire Protection Territory, and the professionals of our 911 dispatch center. These are the people who answer the call when someone in our community is having the worst day of their life. They work nights, weekends, holidays, often without recognition. Their professionalism, discipline, and commitment are part of the Bluffton Foundation. And while we're recognizing those who answer the call, I would be remiss not to mention another member of our public safety family, often working quietly behind the scenes, our animal control officers. Whether it's protecting residents, assisting families, or caring for animals that have nowhere else to go, they serve this community with compassion and persistence. Thank you for all you do. We appreciate it. When infrastructure ages in clusters, challenges do not arrive one at a time. They arrive layered. There is no one ribbon cutting that fixes that. There is only disciplined, sustained work. Much of that work is invisible. Residents do not see pipe replacements beneath the street. They do not see preventive maintenance. They do not see the modeling, forecasting, and long-term planning required to keep systems stable. Strong communities do not ignore aging systems and hope for the best. They face them directly, and we have. They resist the temptation to defer responsibility. This is simply the admission price of competitiveness. Foundations alone do not create momentum. Momentum requires investment in place. People don't invest in rhetoric, studies, or plans. They invest in places. Downtown, the riverfront, parks, public spaces where people gather without an agenda. Places communicate standards. They tell families what to expect. They tell business whether we are serious. They tell investors whether we are disciplined. The quality of our public spaces signals what we believe we deserve. Let me repeat that. The quality of our public spaces signals what we believe we deserve. If we build cheaply, we communicate something. If we build thoughtfully, we communicate something else. Anybody here wrestle in high school? You're all a bunch of basketball players, aren't you? I did wrestle. I haven't grown much since then, at least not vertically. Throughout my 4 years, I wrestled weights of 103 to 126. Before every match, there was a weigh-in. You stood next to your opponent, close enough to see his frame, his reach, his posture. You didn't get to pretend he was smaller than he was. You assessed, you adjusted, you prepared, and then you stepped onto the mat. Competition begins with clarity. Cities are no different. We must look honestly at the communities around us. Who is investing boldly, and in what? Who is developing housing intentionally? Who is organizing around long-term strategy? And then ask the harder question, are we? May I challenge you with something today? Jim Collins, author of Good to Great, said, "Facts are stubborn things." Here is a fact I want you all to think hard about. According to the most recent economic impact study, Wells County ranks 88th out of 92 in tourism spending. 88th. That's not an accusation, it's a benchmark. And benchmarks are useful because they tell us exactly where we stand. And here's another fact, perhaps more important. Wells County tourism supports 62 jobs. 62. Remember that. Tourism represents just 1% of our total workforce. Tourism is not one of our dominant industries. That's not a weakness, that's clarity. That means we are not dependent on tourism, but it also means we are not fully leveraging it. If visitor activity doubled, it would not overwhelm our economy, but it would meaningfully strengthen it. So, that city with the 200 chili entries, their county supports 1,132 tourism jobs. 1,132. Think about that. 1,132 versus 62. That is 140% more jobs than our largest employer in the county. We spend a lot of time to attract and retain our valuable industries through infrastructure investment and tax incentives, engineering services, financial analysis, and bond counsel. The untapped tourism potential is real. And here's what matters even more. Tourism is not just an economic lever. It is a social lever. Places that attract visitors are places where residents gather. Now, having said that, Bluffton is the county seat of this county. County seats are typically the civic and economic anchor of their region. They must attract activity. And a shout out to our Parks Department because they are masters at attracting activity. They host events. They become destinations. And I'm here to tell you the city is all in. Are we all in as well? When we create destinations, we create connection. And connection is the foundation of social capital. More on this later. This is not about chasing tourism. This is about building places where people belong and building programming people desire. So, we will study our strongest opponents, not with envy, with clarity, and we will raise our standard. That is what this moment requires of Bluffton. Competing with the best regardless of size. This does not require extravagance. It requires leaders who refuse to accept average. We are replacing a more than 50-year-old municipal pool with a new aquatic center. Not because it is flashy, even though it is. Not because it wins headlines, even though it will. But because communities that expect families to stay must invest in places families gather. The old pool served its generation well. This new facility will serve the next. That is renewal. Intergenerational responsibility. Choosing long-term quality over deferred maintenance. We are actively working to transform a brownfield site into a new park asset. Land that once represented stagnation can become a space that builds connection. That is not cosmetic improvement, that is disciplined redevelopment. Strong cities do not abandon underutilized ground. They reclaim it. They reposition it. They put it back to work for the community. Don't know what that is? Good. It's just a tease for another day. We are also investing in owner-occupied rehabilitation because stable housing is not a luxury. It is infrastructure. When families can remain in their homes safely and affordably, neighborhoods stabilize, properties values stabilize, schools stabilize, confidence stabilize. We will do this alongside new development. These decisions are deliberate. Choosing long-term quality over short-term convenience is how communities go from good to great. Average shall not be acceptable. Now let's talk about stewardship at the state level. Under current law, Bluffton stands to lose approximately $2 million per year in local income tax revenue. That is not rhetoric, that is math. $2 million affects infrastructure and capital planning. It affects competitiveness. Long-term systems require long-term predictability. You cannot responsibly manage decades-long infrastructure if the financial footing beneath it shifts. That's why I've been actively engaged at the State House, working with our senator, working with our representative, advocating for productive changes. I am not observing that process, I am engaged in it, protecting Bluffton's ability to plan, build, and compete responsibly. Strong cities make a stronger state. Shrinking our ability to invest in ourselves does not make us stronger. It makes us smaller. And Bluffton was not built by people who aim small. There is something deeper than infrastructure and finance. Across this country, researchers describe what they call alienated America, isolation. Communities that appear stable on the surface but are thinning underneath. Declining civic participation, declining membership in service organizations, declining trust, a slow erosion of social capital. Cities do not compete on buildings alone. They compete on relationships, trust, shared purpose, connections. When social capital declines, competitiveness declines with it. The city has been working hard crafting our master plan with these principles in mind. We have involved many leaders to participate in this process. Some of you are here today, not as a document, but as an organizing framework. By the end of this month, that plan will come before council for approval. It outlines clear vision principles, not slogans, but as standards. Sustainable infrastructure, expanded medical services, housing growth, third places, programming and activation, downtown and riverfront development. These are not themes. These are our compass, our direction. And direction does not happen accidentally. It must be organized. And citizens must shape it. You, everyone in this room, because when participation declines, when fewer people step forward, isolation grows. Communities do not fracture at once, they slowly disconnect. They attend less, they volunteer less, they lead less, and eventually institutions weaken. We have lost the Kiwanis in Bluffton. That should get our attention, not as nostalgia, as a signal. Because competitive cities do not allow their civic infrastructure to erode quietly. They intervene. Within the next 30 days, I will personally convene the first meeting to restore Kiwanis in Bluffton. That date will be set before the end of this month. I intend to fill that room with at least 20 founding members, not attendees, founding members. Leadership does not rebuild itself. We can choose to be comfortable, or we can choose to compete. We can choose to be adequate, or we can choose to be great. That choice belongs to all of us. Government will do its part. I will do mine. The question is whether we will do ours. We are passing a card to each one of you. On that card is 4 QR codes. First are 7 vision principles. Second, the full current draft of our master plan. Third, the Parlor Voice podcast. You can find it on YouTube. Click a thumbs up. Subscribe. Hit the notification bell. And fourth, a simple question. Will you step forward? So read the vision principles in the master plan. Watch the Parlor Voice conversation. Join a service organization. Rebuild Kiwanis. Strengthen Optimist. Strengthen Lions. Fuel the momentum of the Rotary. Get engaged. We are building a participating city. And competitive cities are built by people who show up, by people who expect more from government and from themselves. And Bluffton will compete.